alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Who attended yesterday's session? All right, and you came back. Okay, so today is a complete opposite topic that we're going to talk about. We are asked, because we're talking about burning, etc. If something happens, something burns, the exit is over there. No, that was just kidding. So the topic is burn your business plan, how to successfully start a company. As usual, the way we start is when this works. Yes. So in every session that we do, we put things into the right context. Number one is we at Cubic, we have two major customer segments. It's very important to understand those two segments because each of these two segments, we follow a different strategy. On the left side, you see these are entrepreneurs with an idea stage. We call them startups. And these startups, the fundamental objective of these startups is to search for the right business model. It's not about writing a business plan or so, but go out and search for the right business model in order to become a young company with a significant potential to scale. And the second segment are young companies. These young companies, we call them scale-ups. Their objective is to execute a known business model in order to become big companies that go out and change the world. The left side, startups, the right side, scale-ups. Yesterday we were talking about the scale-ups and focus on how to create and pitch a business presentation. Today we're going to talk about the left side, which is startups. What are the best tools to use for startups? Today's session we're going to focus on about two things. Number one, we're going to de-learn what we used to believe. Because many things that we used to believe are actually not applicable in the real world. And then we're going to show you how we at Cubic implement the new way of learning, which is how to successfully start a company by not only following, but implementing the Lean Startup methodology and the specific outcome so far. Let's start first by de-learning what we used to believe. So to talk about a startup, how to successfully start a company, let's take an example. Suppose there is a brilliant entrepreneur. There's a brilliant entrepreneur, and his name is, just come and sit over there. Now you have the attention. Suppose there's Omar. He is a graduate of Sharjah University in the UAE. Just suppose. Omar is a senior executive. He has significant experience. He used to work for large companies for many, many years. He's a very senior and experienced executive. All his operating experience built some tremendous credentials, He got so many awards, how to run companies. He won a lot of awards, not only in the companies, but as well at university level. One day, Omar went out and he had a brilliant idea. He had a brilliant idea about his new company. So he was thinking about, wow, I have a killer idea. We're going to talk about who was killed in a few minutes. So the senior executive, Omar, had a killer business idea. So he went out and did some research. So he went out, did a significant amount of market research because that's what he used to do in large companies. He used the Gartner's forecast, all the top-down analysis that you could do, all the spreadsheets. He did a significant amount of markets research. He leveraged the internet. He went to the libraries and get beautiful data together about a particular market that he wanted to tackle. The research looks good, and then he went out and he wrote a fantastic and beautiful business plan because that's what we used to believe. He went out and spent a couple months in writing a 92 pages of business plan, which has all the beautiful pages, all the Excel sheets, spreadsheets, everything that a good analyst could actually dream of. And everything looked really, really beautiful. So based on his credentials, his experience, Omar secured the last final piece, what all entrepreneurs should, in brackets, do, which is funding. Omar went out, somehow he secured as well funding. So money in hand, the first thing what Omar was doing was he went out and focused on setting up his company, because that's what we used to believe. You write a business plan, somehow magically you get funding. The next step is you set up the company and you focus on and executing your plan. He also was in all major newspapers and in magazines. Everybody invited him. He was invited to give keynote speeches, similar to GEW, and have great talks and share his experience as an entrepreneur. So he went out and shared his experience as an entrepreneur. Did he actually execute something? No, but we're going to get back to it. So he focused on sharing his experience as a great entrepreneur, how he set up a company, and his experience about how to write a business plan. Everything looked really, really beautiful. And Omar and his startup were on the roll. Very, very positive, very enthusiastic, and very happy about what he has accomplished so far. 3 questions. Number 1, Omar is focusing now on developing the product because he supposedly knows exactly what the customer wants, and he knows exactly what the customer needs. Did he go out and talk to customers and validate it? No, no need, because he already secured funding. Because he already secured funding, why would he waste time and money and energy talking to customers? Because he secured the most important piece, which is funding. This is what we used to believe. You start with a business plan, you get funding, the next what you do is you execute. You talk to customers? No. With a good amount of cash in the bank, he focused on execution of the predefined plan with no significant customer feedback. How likely do you think this business is likely to succeed? Despite all his experience, research, and his beautiful and colorful business plan, Omar finally failed. He failed, even though he did everything what we used to believe. He did everything what we are taught in traditional business schools and textbooks. But he still failed. And we're going to get back why he failed and afterwards recommend him new strategies how to successfully start a company. These are some of the deadliest sins that any entrepreneur can do. Saying that I know exactly what the customer wants. I know exactly what features to build without actually validating. Focus on the launch date without validating that at the end of the launch date, there are customers who would buy his or her product. Entrepreneurs also confuse the titles. If you have a CEO and a CFO and a CTO in a startup, it's completely different than an existing company. The job titles, CEO, CTO, etc., are the same, but the job description is entirely different. A CEO's role in a startup is completely different than a job description of a CEO of an existing established company. The titles are very fancy, look alike, but the job description, what they're doing, the content, is completely different. So now let's go back and think about what are the things that we used to believe and what we now know. Let's start with what we used to believe. Problem number 1. Traditional business schools and textbooks, they providing us tools that are excellent for established companies, but are really toxic for startups. In other words, most tools that business schools teach for startups are actually not only outdated, but they are wrong. Let me say it again. Most tools taught by business schools and textbooks about startups are very, very much toxic. Let's go through some of these examples. We have the 5 forces model, very beautiful. I'm sure some of you know the 5 forces model. The next is a SWOT analysis, the strengths, weakness, opportunity, and threats. And then we have the competitive advantage for Michael Porter and my beloved business plan. All of these tools we are taught in business schools and traditional textbooks. The problem with that is they presume a static world. They presume that you could sit down and predict very, very precisely the next 5 years. They presume nothing will happen between now and 5 years. This is one of the fundamental wrong assumptions about these tools. These tools are excellent. These tools are excellent for established and large companies, but they are very much toxic for startups because they misguide you. And we're going to talk about why and how. The problem number 2 is the process that we are taught. We are taught you start first with an idea, then you set up a company, and then something magic happens in the middle that most don't know, and then you grow the company and somehow you exit. Let's go a little bit deeper. You see on this graph, below you have the different stages of development. We are taught that we have an idea, that you do a business plan, proof of concept, a working prototype, the prototype, and somehow at the end you generate revenues. And on top are the different funding mechanisms. Starts with research grant, family, friends, and founders, Series A, B, C, the whole alphabet. And the problem with that is that the more you go to the right, the more customer validation you actually do. So we are taught once you develop the product, you go out, then you actually do customer validation. And we are also taught that the moment you start your company, until you are cash flow, cumulative cash flow positive, this is a valley of death. The problem with this process that we are taught is that most startups never survive the 3rd birthday. Let me say it again. You might not like it, but that's reality. Around 90–95% of all startups never reach the 3rd year. They never reach the 3rd year. Not only that, but venture capitalists fund around 1% of all submitted business plans. If venture capitalists, if the investors fund only 1% of business plans, why are we taught to focus on developing a business plan at first? Why are we focusing on the 1% instead of focusing on the 99% and coming up with new tools in order to get funded? There's some reasons behind it. Let's take a step back in history to better understand why these tools were developed and for whom. In 1602, it's regarded the Dutch East India Company was the first company that issued stock certificates. It was in 1602. And after 400 years, companies managed to start companies, to build and to run, operate companies for the next 400 years. Because the complexity of how to administer companies, the senior executive needed a much better trained executives to administer large companies. Let me say it again. Over the next 400 years, large companies needed a cadre of well-trained executives to administer large corporations. So therefore, in 1908, Harvard Business School came up with the first MBA, Master of Business Administration, in order to serve the need that these large companies had to administer large operations. To administer large operations. That was the reason why in 1908, Harvard came up with the first MBA course in order to serve this particular need, the MBA. Let's go a little bit closer to the MBA. MBA means Master of Business Administration. It does not mean, administration does not mean starting. An MBA means not Master of Business Startup, or how to successfully start a company. It means Master of Business Administration, and not Master of Business of a business startup. Let me ask, how many of you have an MBA or are pursuing an MBA or are thinking to pursue an MBA? I had one. I actually have two, to be honest. Okay. Let's talk about what we used to believe in the MBA. Number one, we are taught the first thing that you need to do is to write a business plan. What we now know is more like a fiction book than a real business plan. But let's put it quickly aside. So the fundamental and wrong assumption in the business plan is that we are able to predict the next 3 to 5 years in a very precise way. This is what we are used to believe. Sitting down in an isolation and writing the business plan. You would spend a couple of months, or weeks or months, in just writing down the future unknowns. It's more or less a research document or a research exercise that is written in an isolation. It includes beautiful operational charts, which is the operational plan, and as well the financial forecast. The fundamental and wrong assumption is that we believe that we can precisely forecast what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, which is fundamentally wrong. The next is we're going out to pitch to potential investors. And magically, somehow magically, we receive investment from seed fund investment or venture capitalists. And before we showed you that only 1% supposedly got actually funded. But let's say magically we got funded. After funding, the first thing what we're going to do is then we're going to focus on spending the money. So in the step before, we were looking to acquire money to get investment. Once we have investment, we are taught the first thing what you're going to do is get rid of the money again by spending it. Do you talk to customers? You have a lot of money in your account. You already got funded. Why would you talk to customers? So again, the product development is done in an isolation. Similar in the business plan. When we did the business plan, we did it in isolation. And we got, somehow magically, we got funded. And then the first thing what we're going to do is product development. Again, in an isolation. The next step, we're going to do the alpha version, the beta version, and then we do the launching the product. All of these 4 steps are happening inside the building, inside an isolated block, whether it's your company or an incubator or whatever it is. And after launching the product, you actually go out and look for significant customer validation. And then you ask yourself, where are the customers? Why are they not buying my product? I did everything possible to execute my plan. After spending months and years of development, spending 1,000 man-hours of development, we actually did everything that we used, what we said in a business plan, but these bad customers, they are not buying our products. Why are they not behaving as we planned it in our business plan a year or 2 years before? It's all about an executing of a predefined plan, which is the leading cause of a startup. Let me say it again. These tools that are taught in traditional textbooks and business schools are excellent for existing and large companies because they know their customers and they know the market, they know their issues that they are solving. It's excellent tools how to run large and existing companies, but it's absolutely toxic. These tools are toxic in a startup environment because startups are fundamentally different than existing and large companies. So you do not want to go that road. Let's get some lessons learned. This is what we used to believe, and let's check what we now know. We now know that no business plan survives the first customer contact. Let me say it again. No business plan survives the first customer contact. A couple of months ago, we were doing a presentation here in Qatar, which is very similar to anywhere in around the world. So we did a presentation in front of the bankers. And we asked the bankers, what are you asking entrepreneurs if they need loan from you? So all of them said, we need first a business plan. I said, okay, fair enough. The second question was, how many of you have ever seen in your life, not only in your business life, in your bank life, but as well in your private life, or heard from a TV or internet, Have you ever heard an entrepreneur who actually executed a plan the way they have done it initially? And they all said no. They don't execute the way they planned it. So then there was quiet in the room. Because then they started to think, why are we asking for a business plan if we know that the entrepreneurs are not executing based on that business plan? That's a fundamental paradox. So no business plan survives the first customer contact. A startup is like a roller coaster. It's literally like a roller coaster. So, or as, if you put it in the daily schedule, forget about putting a 5-year plan that you are able to plan the next 3 to 5 years. You cannot even plan a week. What might be right in the first day on Monday with a great idea turned out to be completely wrong in the second day. What might be right on the third day might be a disaster on that day. And at the end, there might be a customer who's going to sign a contract or you're going to be out of the business. It is impossible to plan ahead, to plan 3 to 5 years, where it's actually very difficult to plan even a week as a first-time entrepreneur. Or, as Mike Tyson would say about the pre-fight strategies of his opponents, everybody has a plan until they get punched. And in a startup environment, every day you're getting punched. No way you can plan it in your business plan. No way you can write down, that day I'm going to get a punch, and I'm going to change the strategy and move from a direct sales to the indirect sales and all of these stuff. No way you can plan it. Number 2, startups are not a smaller version of large companies. Large companies, they deal with known business models, so they have answers for them. So therefore, they're focusing on execution. Startups, on the other hand, they are looking for a new business. They're looking for a business model that actually works. So they are in a search mode. See, let me say it again. Startups, they are in a search mode because they're looking for answers how to find a repeatable and scalable business model. And existing companies, they deal mostly with knowns. So therefore, they execute. In compared to startup, they search. So the fundamental insight is now that tools that work to execute does not work for search. Complete different environment. And the third is startups therefore need new tools in how to successfully start a company. Not these old-fashioned tools anymore, but these more surgery tools in order to successfully start a company. To put it, let me say it in a different way. Companies are different than startups. Companies are existing companies. They sell products, service, solution in order to generate revenues and profits. These are solid companies. And a startup, you see, there's reason, there's a tent. A startup is a temporary organization, and we don't say it's a company. It's a temporary organization in order to search for the right repeatable and scalable business model. It needs to be repeatable, several companies, several customers, and it needs to be scalable. That's a fundamental difference between a company and a startup. The company, they execute because they have a business plan and focusing on knowns. They know their customers, the problems, and the solutions. On the other hand, startups, they are in a search mode. They have no product, no customers, they're searching for answers. Complete different methodology, complete different skill set needed. A CEO in a startup has a complete different skill set as a CEO of an existing and large company. As mentioned earlier, the titles might be the same, but the job description is fundamentally different. What they do is fundamentally different. It's not about the name, the title. It's about the job description, which is fundamentally different in both segments. I just wrap it together. The traditional model, which is what we used to believe, in the strategy is you write a business plan that includes a 5-year plan of the operational plan and the financial forecast. On the process side is the product management, which is the agile or waterfall development, where you start with a design, then a specification, then a detailed technical specification, etc., until you launch it. In an organizational perspective, traditionally, we used to believe that you have a strategy department, you have the strategy department, you have the HR, you have finance, you have sales and marketing, etc. This is what we are used to believe. And in funding, we used to believe you have a seed fund, and you have Series A, Series B, Series C, all the alphabet, you go through it, and then somehow you exit. That's what we used to believe. And from the educational perspective, we are taught about accounting, about sales, about marketing, about organizational behavior, about HR, and all these beautiful topics that are relevant for established companies, but not really for a startup environment. What we now know is the lean startup. The lean startup has a completely different focus. On the strategy side, instead of writing a business plan that contains the operations and the finance, it's about business model hypothesis, or as I said, these are just guesses what you have. In the beginning, you just have guesses, nothing more than guesses. What you do is, on the process side, you go out and actually validate. You do customer development and agile development, which we're going to talk about in 2 minutes. From the organizational point of view, it is a customer-oriented organization. It's the job of the founders to do everything. You cannot outsource going outside to talking to customer. You cannot outsource to do the technical development. In a startup environment, you must have the key assets in your founding team. If you're developing an app, if you don't have an app developer in your founding team, you're not going to make it. Because you can't outsource everything. You can't outsource to develop it outside. You cannot outsource to go to customer and validate. You cannot say, I'm going to hire a person to talking to customers. I'm just sitting in the back. It's not going to work. You as a founder have to do all of these jobs. Whether you like it or not, but you have to do it because you need to get you need to listen to the customer, getting the authentic feedback what the customer says. And from the financing part of view, it's not really about angel, Series A, B, C, D. It's a wrong assumption. We are used to believe that raise money and then you spend the money. Instead of being in a spending mode, you should think about what are the resources that we need. What are the resources that we need, and how can we get the resources either for free or for a discount? You use the business model canvas, which we're going to talk about, and you figure out who in the value chain or in the business model would get value from my product or services that would give me these resources for free or for a discounted price. So you think about from the resource perspective, not from the spending perspective. In other words, you're not raising 500,000 real or $500,000 and thinking about, okay, how can I spend it? No, you're thinking about what resources do I really need in order to identify the repeatable and scalable business model. And these resources, you figure out in your value chain, who can provide me these resources, either for free or in exchange for services that we do, or in any other way, in order to significantly reduce the funding requirement that you have. And in the education side, in the startup, it's not about accounting. You don't need accounting and all of these stuff. You have to know the business model canvas, the business model design, the customer and agile development, which we're going to talk in a few minutes. This is what we now know. On the left side, this is what we used to believe for the last 400 years. For the last 400 years, this was the requirement. What we now know is the lean startup methodology that actually started 5 or 6 years ago. To summarize, large companies, they have great tools to administer big businesses. Beautiful, and they work. Since 1908, traditional business schools, what they're trying to do is taking these tools and applying it for the startup environment. But what they don't understand is that startups are not a smaller version of large companies. Startups need new tools in order to successfully start a business. So what we're going to do, as the lessons learned now, is instead of writing the business plan in the beginning and getting a significant customer validation, number one is if you have a business plan, the first thing what you should do is burn it. Because it has no value for you. These are all guesses. These are all guesses. You're trying to predict the next 5 years. You're documenting all the future unknowns. So instead of writing a business plan in the beginning and getting significant customer development at the end, we reverse it. We start with the customer development first, and then at the end, writing a business plan. So the business plan afterwards is not about theory, but it's fact-based. It's fact-based instead of being theory-based. This approach is not just a new approach or different approach in entrepreneurship, but a fundamental different approach how to successfully start a company. This approach is a complete different approach how to successfully start a company. We are not saying don't do a business plan. Don't misunderstand what we are trying to say. We're just saying don't do it first. Don't do it first. You do it once you turn this hypothesis into specific facts, then you turn this into a business plan, which means planning comes before the plan. And this is the right way of doing so. Just to summarize the Lean methodology, you do experimentation rather than elaborate planning. You experiment quickly, you learn from it. You get significant customer feedback in the beginning instead of following just an intuition. And you do an iterative design instead of having a huge development cost up front. And we're going to go more in details now. The 3 key principles of a lean startup are, number 1, the business model canvas. So instead of documenting the future unknowns and writing 97 beautiful pages with all the Excel sheets and spending months and years in a business plan, you just need one sheet, one large sheet. And you fill up all your hypotheses in a business model canvas, which business model canvas is, in a nutshell, how your company creates, delivers, and captures value. The second is you do go out and do customer validation. You go out and actually talk with your potential customers, partners, etc., and validate each component of the business model canvas. And then you come back, you iterate. You come back, you iterate. You come back, you iterate. And this is the agile development. Instead of spending thousands of man-hours on development, you develop a minimal viable product, which is just one feature that is relevant for your customer. You test it, you come back, you change it. You test it, you come back, you change it. You test it, you come back, you change it. Back to Omar. You remember Omar? Let's help him. Let's give him 5 good tips in order next time to successfully start a company. Number 1, business plans as good for as a startup or bad for as a startup? Excellent. So instead of sticking to a static document, just throw it away. It has no value. As a first-time entrepreneur, when you have an idea. The second is, it's about the business model. So Omar was focusing on starting a company, remember? He didn't talk about business model. His idea was, I'm going to set up my company and spending and going out and giving keynote speeches and etc. Instead of that, you should have used the business model canvas and then actually going out to talk to customers. And from a product perspective, the same product or technology that you might have, or in this case Omar has, it might be actually applicable to any to complete different business model. For example, this water. What is your name? Mustafa. What's your name? Islam. Mustafa and Islam. This water, Mustafa, he is thirsty. So I'm going to sell this thirst killer, which is Rayan thirst killer, to him for 1 riyal. And Islam, he wants to have a refreshment. So I'm going to sell him Rayan the refreshment. I sell him a 5 riyal. How many solutions did I just sold? 2. And how many different products? The same product, but 2 complete different solutions based on a customer feedback. Yeah? Mustafa wanted the thirst killer, so I sold it to him for 1 riyal. Islam wanted more high-end refreshment, so I sold it to him for 5 riyal. Think about it. So as an entrepreneur, as a first-time entrepreneur, startup, when you come up with an idea, you put down different business model opportunities and you pick up the one and you go out and really test it. Number 4, go out and talk to customers. Every component of the business model canvas, you go out and validate. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And finally, After customer validation, again, after customer validation, you build your company. It's not before. You don't have to incorporate your company or hiring consultants, do all this fancy stuff. You go out and validate your business model. Once you validate your business model, then you go out and set up the company. Otherwise, what you're actually doing with your money is, otherwise you're burning cash. Otherwise, you're burning cash. Don't do that. Before we move over to how to successfully start actually a company, we have a questionnaire as well, a present for you. I'm going to ask one question now and afterwards 2 questions. So, what was the fundamental wrong thing that Omar did? Arm up. I don't see you. A little bit more details. And he believed in it, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah? Good. Now let's talk about how actually to successfully start a company by introducing you how we as Quebec Qatar Business Incubation Center, how we execute our activity. Qatar Business Incubation Center, when we set up our organization a year ago, we wanted to be different. We do not want it to have a generic mission or such as developing and creating an entrepreneurship culture and all this fluff. We wanted to be very, very specific. We said our mission is to develop the next 100 million Qatari Riyal businesses. Very precise in numbers. Our objective is to develop in the next 100 million Qatari Riyal companies here in Qatar. So to do so, we have developed programs following the life cycle of an entrepreneur. We start with a speaker series to inspire our community. And then we do startup sessions such as the startup weekends and 1, 2, 3 day sessions in order to identify the best business ideas and for the entrepreneurs to figure out whether they are entrepreneurs or not. And in here we provide coaching, mentoring, education, etc. in order to move them up into the LeanStartup program, which we're going to talk about in a minute more in detail. And the LeanStartup program is a 10 weeks program. We would help entrepreneurs to turn an idea into a real business. So in here we provide coaching, mentoring, action-oriented teaching, and as well smart financing to move them up to become scale-ups. Remember scale-ups earlier? These are young companies that have a significant potential to scale. We call them scale-ups. We do not call them SMEs, as we don't believe that entrepreneurs come up one day in the morning and they say, when we grow up, we want to become an SME. No, they want to become big companies. That's why we call them scale-ups. So in the scale-ups, we provide additional coaching, mentoring, and smart financing until they exit. Let's focus on our flagship program, which is the LeanStartup program. The LeanStartup program, it's a 10 weeks program where we help entrepreneurs to turn an idea into a real business in 10 weeks. It's not about business plan, and it's not about executing a predefined plan, but rather it's about customer validation. It's about developing a minimal viable product, which is like a prototype or anything initially produced, a simulation, etc., in order to validate with the customers. And the third objective is to pitch in front of our judges. It's fast, furious, and result-driven. We call it, it's 100% fact-free program. We don't teach you things that you do not need. Yeah? We don't teach you things that you do not need. So what it specifically is, the first week is an action-oriented 1-week program, followed by phase 2, which is every Monday we're meeting from 4 to 8, and then phase 3 is the actual demo day. And what we do is we start with a business model canvas, we then go out every week, we ask our entrepreneurs, come back with customer feedback, what have you done? Now we are in the second batch of the LeanStartup program, and in the middle of this LeanStartup program. And many of them are already generating revenues after 3 weeks. Let me say it again. Many of them are already generating revenues without having developed a product, without having incorporated a company, and without having developed a business plan. They're generating revenues. And we do some crazy exercises. We do really crazy exercises in order to make our entrepreneurs very much entrepreneurial and customer driven. We started this wave 2 in October until December 8th. And on December 9, inshallah, you all are invited, will be our demo day at Quebec, which is in a new industrial area. On December 9 from 2:30 till 5:30. There you can actually see our entrepreneurs, what they have done, and listen to their pitches. Now we're going to go one at a time. What are we actually doing over here, what we're doing over here, and over there. We just prepared 3 brief videos about what is business model canvas, how to do customer development, and then the exercise that we do. Number 1 is the business model canvas.
An organization's business model can be described with 9 basic building blocks: your customer segments, your value proposition for each segment, the channels to reach customers, customer relationships you establish, the revenue streams you generate, the key resources and key activities you require to create value, the key partners, and the cost structure of the business model. But it's not sufficient to just enumerate the 9 building blocks. What you really want to do is to map them out on a pre-structured canvas. This is what we call the business model canvas, a tool that helps you map, discuss, design, and invent new business models. Let's briefly go through the 9 building blocks, starting with the customer segments. These are all the people or organizations for which you're creating value. This includes simple users and paying customers. For each segment, you have a specific value proposition. These are the bundles of products and services that create value for your customers. The channels describe through which touchpoints you're interacting with customers and delivering value. The customer relationships outline the type of relationship you're establishing with your customers. The revenue streams make clear how and through which pricing mechanisms your business model is capturing value. Then you need to describe the infrastructure to create, deliver, and capture value. The key resources show which assets are indispensable in your business model. The key activities show which things you really need to be able to perform well. The key partners show who can help you leverage your business model, since you won't own all key resources yourself, nor will you perform all key activities. Then once you understand your business model's infrastructure, you'll also have an idea of its cost structure. So with the business model canvas, you can map out your entire business model in one image. This works for startup entrepreneurs just as well as for the most senior executives.
So instead of writing a business plan that contains X amount of pages, you just use this one large slide. You put down all the guesses in the beginning. Because in the beginning, the only thing that you have are hypothesis guesses. So you put it down in the business model canvas. What you then do is you actually go out and validate each element of the canvas, and then you come back and change it until you have found a repeatable and a scalable business model. And why is it so important to go out and talk to customers, which is what we call the customer development process. And here's another video that shows the next step, which is the customer development process and the importance to go out and talk to customers.
For entrepreneurs, as smart as you are, on day 1, all you have is a faith-based enterprise. It's a religious organization. Because you're betting on your vision and you see things others don't. But you know, we now know over history, about 95% of the time, you don't have a vision, you're actually hallucinating. So is it possible to kind of eliminate that waste of time and energy to find out only later that you were wrong? And so what we propose is you take your hypotheses, you actually break down your vision into this business model canvas, and now get it out of the building in a fairly formal way, using something we call the customer development process, to test every one of those hypotheses. And what we'll find is, you know what, as smart as we were, we're not smarter than the collective intelligence of our customers. Well, big idea. And when we find out that perhaps we're wrong, we either iterate, that is make minor changes, or we do something called a pivot, which is defined as a Pivot is a substantive change to one or more of the business model canvas components. And instead of firing executives or running out of money or building the wrong product, we simply iterate or pivot until we converge on a repeatable and scalable business model.
So the first was the business model canvas, and the second is the customer development process that we follow. In order to apply it and make it really applicable in the GCC, in particular in Qatar, we do something really cool things, which is what we call real-life exercises. We do a lot of exercises in order to make our entrepreneurs more customer-driven. And all of them are funded, but at the same time as well crazy, I guess. We have several entrepreneurs over here. They have done things that you would not even imagine. I'm going to show you one of the exercises. We went out and we asked them, think about a project idea that you could generate cash, not in 1 year, normally you write down a business plan and it takes 6 months, generating cash revenues, cash. Not in 1 year, not in 1 month, not in 1 week, not in 1 day, only 2 hours. If we ask you now, go out and generate cash in 2 hours, is that possible or impossible? Impossible, right? Because you have to write a business plan first, then you have to get funding, and then you have to develop product, and then you have to sell, and then you have to get the receivables and all this stuff, right? It's impossible. That's what they said as well. So we said, hypothetically, so just in theory, what would you need to make it happen? So they told us we need funding, because that's what we used to believe, right? Remember? So we said, okay, we're going to give you seed fund with a big envelope. They built teams, 20 minutes, all of them said it's impossible. They did in 20 minutes. And then they figured out some ideas. And in 20 minutes when they were ready, we were waiting outside the center. And they came outside and we gave them the check. We are happy to say we have several entrepreneurs from the LeanStartup too. They generated in 2 hours. You said, how much did you generate? Do you remember? What was the total amount?
Actually, we generated in 2 hours 8,000 something.
8,000.
Yeah.
8,418 riyal.
Yes.
In 2 hours.
In 2 hours, and we thought it's impossible. So we were always thinking about the plans and business plans, but in reality, when we went out and he gave us only 5 riyals.
Yeah, the seat was 5 riyal, by the way.
We were shocked what we can do in 5 riyals, and we were in Souk Waqif, so we started to think about ideas. Then we bought some bottles of water. It was 4 riyals each bottle, and I asked them the same question that I'm going to ask you. Excuse me. So the question is, I'm going to take this to a labor. How much you're ready to pay for it? Half riyal, maybe. Some of them paid 1,000. So it was only about going and testing the market. And yes, I'm an MBA student, and I started to believe that plans are for ready-made businesses, but not for startups. Thank you.
You guys did an excellent job, and his team generated actually half of that amount. Sorry? He mentioned it. For example, he went out and bought water, and he went in Souk Waqif, and they said, if you give this to the laborers, how much are you ready to pay? One paid 1,000 riyal. 1,000 riyal. Because he identified what is the need for what would the customer pay money. So when you look at the business model, if you understand your customer's tipping point, how you can get money, then you can actually generate a lot of cash. You just have to know what are the customers outside, what are their needs, and then you focus on the particular needs in order to serve it. Yeah. So, yeah.
But the 1,000 riyal for a bottle of water is economical.
Yeah. Others had other ideas. Others were giving massage. Others were giving massage. Others were. Do you remember some of the projects?
Well, actually, most of them actually I sold the water, but the thing is with his team, they didn't actually sell the water. They sold the idea behind the water, which is the yeah, the feel good idea, which is, you know, يعني, I want to donate for labor, but instead of giving them cash, we're giving them water. يعني, you know, يعني, yeah, the person who paid 1,000, I guess, they told them under one condition, which is come back tomorrow afternoon and distribute the water in the afternoon, which is, you know, when they actually need the cold water and the dates. So yeah, they didn't sell the water, they sold the idea behind the water, which is
Exactly.
labor.
And other ideas was taking pictures, professional pictures, and they send them per email in a very expensive way. Yes. And at the end, the money, because it was an exercise, at the end, we donated to a charity. We donated to a charity. So these exercises that we were doing, yes?
So the concept of the charity, that's how it works.
It's one way, yeah. It's one way.
Yeah, but actually, the thing is, يعني people were asking them, is the money going to charity? They used to tell them, no, the money is for us to help a startup, but the water is a charity purpose, which is, you know, giving it to people who need water. But the money is for us, which is helping young Qatari entrepreneurs.
So that's why what you do is you just combine the social aspect with the profit aspect. Yeah. Or other project was giving massage, others they delivered food, whatever it is. So the whole exercise, the reason why we did it was to be creative. We wanted to that they're not just thinking about outside the box, but they should be actually completely outside the box, not only thinking but physically be outside the box and be creative. Under time pressure, you cannot imagine how creative you can be when you're really under time pressure. And the whole objective was to go out and listen to customers, identifying for what would the customer pay you money? For what would they pay you money? These kind of exercises we do in order to make our entrepreneurs really customer oriented. What we do in the Lean Startup is we take the business model canvas, the customer development, and agile engineering, and we put it into an entrepreneurship evidence-based program. It's evidence-based, it's not theory-based, but evidence, fact-based. What we start with are first hypothesis. They start with first initial guesses, then they go out and do customer validation, they experiment with it, and then they generate data, specific data. And this data would be fed back to the hypothesis in order to turn the hypothesis into facts. Yeah? Into facts. And over the period of 10 weeks, we help our entrepreneurs to make them ready to pitch in front of our investors. Each week, our entrepreneurs come back with feedback what the customer says, and in order to increase their, what we call the investment readiness level. And inshallah, on December 9, we have the demo day where we believe they are ready in order to pitch facts, not theory. They will start with saying, we identified a problem based on a customer feedback. We are developing a solution that will solve the customer needs based on the feedback that we received. Our business model is to generate revenues using 1, 2, 3, and this is the proof. They will show cash, they will show contracts, they will show letter of intent, they will show memorandum of understanding. They will not just talk in theory, they will not have empty talks, empty words, but they will prove everything that they say. Unlike any other institutions, they will prove everything that they say. No theory-based, it's evidence-based. In these 10 weeks, most of them did customer validation. Several of them generated revenues. 2 of them each, not together, 2 teams each generated more than 280,000 real. Let me say it again, in 10 weeks, the 2 best, each of them generated more than 280,000 real. Without having a business plan, without having incorporated the company, and without securing any funding. And in this group, in the Lean Startup Wave 2, we are now in the middle, there's one team who is actually generating already more than 600,000 real in revenues. In other words, more than 600,000 pages of their business plan. For each real, 1 page. No business plan, no incorporated company, and they have no product developed. Unlike what we used to believe, We have to develop a product. We have to incorporate the company. We have to generate first funding to do anything. We're doing exactly the opposite. So with this, I would like to finish and thank you everybody for being here. If you have any questions, please not only ask me, but ask the fabulous team, which is Khalid, which is Isa, or one of our entrepreneur, Muhammad. There's Ali and Rawan over there. Yeah, 2 questions for you, and then you leave. And then we would like to ask you to come outside to take a picture all together. What are the 3 tools that we as Quebec use in order to help entrepreneurs to turn an idea into a real startup into a real startup company? In these 10 weeks, what are the 3 techniques that we use? That was the first hand.
First, to make a business model.
Yes.
Then second, customer validation.
Yes.
Third, agile engineering.
Say it again? Agile development, yes.
Agile.
But think about something else. Agile development, we do it as well. But specifically for Qatar, what are we as Quebec doing? We do this, we do business model canvas, customer development. And what is the third what we do? Yes. You helped him, okay? Yeah. Okay, you get it.
Thank you.
Khalid? Thank him. Last question. When is our demo day? What time? All right. Excellent. Do you have questions for us? Excellent. We'd like to invite you to come outside to take a picture with all of us together. Okay?
1, 2.